Robert Kiyosaki grew up with two father figures, his real father, whom he calls his poor dad, and his best friend's father, known as his rich dad. Both were intelligent and hard-working men, yet they had completely different views on money and success. His poor dad believed in formal education, getting good grades, and finding a stable job to ensure security. His rich dad, on the other hand, believed in learning how money works and using it to create wealth. As a young boy, Robert was torn between these two philosophies. Over time, he noticed that despite his poor dad's high education, he often struggled financially, while his rich dad, with little formal schooling, became wealthy. Through this contrast, Robert learned that financial education, not academic achievement, is the true key to wealth. He discovered that the poor and middle class work for money, while the rich make money work for them. The introduction sets the foundation for the lessons that follow, emphasizing that mindset, understanding assets and liabilities, and developing financial intelligence determine one's financial destiny, not income or traditional schooling. The first lesson Robert Kiyosaki learned from his rich dad was that the rich don't work for money, they make money work for them. When Robert was 9 years old, he and his best friend Mike wanted to learn how to become rich. They went to Mike's father, whom Robert later called his rich dad, and asked him to teach them. Instead of giving them a direct answer, Rich Dad offered them a chance to learn through experience. He gave them a small job at one of his convenience stores, paying them just 10 cents an hour. At first, Robert and Mike were excited to work and earn, but soon they became bored and frustrated. Robert felt cheated. He worked hard but earned almost nothing. Finally, he decided to quit and confront Rich Dad about being unfair. Rich Dad laughed and said, "Now you're beginning to learn." He explained that this was part of the lesson. Life doesn't teach you through words, but through experience. Most people, Rich Dad said, work for money and let fear and desire control their lives. Fear pushes them to get jobs, work hard, and cling to job security. Desire, or greed, tempts them to spend whatever they earn, keeping them trapped in a cycle. This endless loop of working, earning, spending, and fearing creates what Rich Dad called the rat race. If Robert wanted to be rich, he had to learn to control his emotions. When people get angry or scared, they stop thinking, and that's when they make poor financial decisions. The poor and middle class let money rule their lives. They think a higher salary or a better job will solve their problems, but it rarely does. The rich, however, understand that money is a tool, a servant, not a master. Money doesn't solve problems. Intelligence does, Rich Dad said. He encouraged Robert to think deeply, to look for opportunities others don't see. When you're not blinded by fear or greed, you can recognize how to make money work for you. Robert began to understand that financial education was far more powerful than a paycheck. Rich Dad told him that jobs are short-term solutions. They don't provide true freedom. True wealth comes from owning assets that generate income, not trading time for money. If you depend only on your job, you are working for money. But if you build assets like businesses, investments, or real estate, your money starts working for you.
Rich Dad said most people never achieve financial freedom because they're too afraid to take risks. They think about losing money rather than learning how to manage it. He encouraged Robert to develop financial intelligence, the ability to make money grow. That intelligence comes from curiosity, courage, and lifelong learning. The key is to observe opportunities calmly, not react emotionally to money problems. Even wealthy people experience fear and greed, but they control it differently. They use fear as motivation to learn, and greed as inspiration to create. The poor let those emotions control them. The rich channel them toward opportunity. From that moment, Robert understood that earning a wage was not the goal. Freedom was. A paycheck might give comfort, but it rarely gives independence. The lesson was not to avoid work, but to learn from every experience. Rich Dad's advice stayed with him for life. Don't work for money. Make money work for you. Chapter 2. In this, Robert Kiyosaki explains that it's not how much money you make that matters. It's how much you keep and how hard that money works for you. Many people think becoming rich is simply about earning more income, but Rich Dad taught that without financial literacy, money is quickly lost. The rich focus on acquiring and understanding assets, while the poor and middle class spend their lives buying liabilities, often without realizing the difference. Rich Dad began by explaining a simple truth. An asset puts money in your pocket. A liability takes money out. It's a definition so simple that most people overlook it. The problem, he said, is that many people think their house is an asset, when in reality, it often takes money out every month through taxes, repairs, and loans. True assets, on the other hand, generate cash flow, things like businesses, investments, or income-producing real estate. Robert noticed that his poor dad, despite being educated and hardworking, constantly struggled with money because his expenses always rose with his income. Every time he earned more, he upgraded his lifestyle. Rich Dad taught that this cycle keeps most people poor. They increase income, but also increase spending. Financial education, therefore, is not about earning more, but about thinking differently about money. Rich Dad drew a simple diagram showing how money flows. The poor spend money on expenses. The middle class spend money on liabilities they think are assets. And the rich invest in assets that grow their income. The goal, he said, is to make your assets column larger than your liabilities column. Over time, the cash flow from those assets will give you freedom from working for a paycheck. Robert learned that people often fall into financial trouble not because they're lazy, but because they never learned how money truly works. Schools teach how to earn money, but not how to manage or multiply it. This lack of financial education causes even high earners, doctors, lawyers, and executives to live paycheck to paycheck. Rich Dad emphasized that financial literacy is the foundation of financial independence. It teaches you to understand statements, cash flow, and how to make decisions that build wealth instead of debt. Another key idea Rich Dad shared was that money is an illusion. It comes and goes quickly if you don't know how to handle it. The rich become rich because they have systems that grow money. They buy assets first and let those assets pay for their luxuries later. The poor, by contrast, buy luxuries first and struggle to pay for them over time. Robert realized that his rich dad was building a life of freedom, while his poor dad was building a life of security. Both men worked hard, but only one understood how to make money serve him. Rich Dad said, the key to getting rich is knowing the difference between an asset and a liability and buying assets. It's a rule so simple, yet it separates the rich from everyone else. By the end of the chapter, Robert understood that wealth is not measured by income, but by how long you could live if you stopped working today. Financial independence means your assets produce enough income to cover your expenses without needing a paycheck. That's when you're truly free. Rich Dad's lesson was clear. Don't just work for money. Build assets that will work for you forever. Chapter 3. In this, Robert Kiyosaki shares Rich Dad's third lesson, mind your own business. Most people spend their lives working in someone else's business, building the wealth of their employer, instead of focusing on creating their own. Rich Dad explained that it's not enough to work for money.
You must also build and grow assets that generate income independently of your job. Rich Dad told Robert that many people confuse their profession with their business. For example, a doctor may think his medical practice is his business, but in truth, it's his profession. He still has to work to earn money. The moment he stops practicing, his income stops too. Rich Dad said your business revolves around your asset column, not your job. The rich focus on acquiring income-producing assets like real estate, stocks, bonds, businesses, and intellectual property. The poor and middle class, on the other hand, focus only on their paycheck and their bills. Robert saw that his poor dad worked tirelessly for promotions, pay raises, and job security. He believed the path to success was through loyalty, education, and a steady paycheck. But Rich Dad encouraged Robert to use his job only as a stepping stone, a way to learn skills and earn money to invest in assets. Keep your day job, but start minding your own business on the side. Rich Dad explained that the rich understand how to separate their personal and professional lives. Their profession provides short-term income, while their business, their growing collection of assets, builds long-term wealth. They don't rely on their employer for security, they build it themselves through smart investments and entrepreneurship. He also warned that many people stay trapped because they believe working harder at their job will make them financial free. But the more they earn, the more taxes and expenses rise. The only true escape is to use extra income to buy assets that produce more income. The rich focus on creating systems where money flows in even when they're not working.
Rich Dad gave examples of simple ways to start building an asset base: buying rental property, investing in small companies, or creating intellectual property such as books, patents, or designs. The key was to start small but stay consistent. It's not how much you make, he said, it's how much you keep and how much that money works for you. Robert noticed that his rich dad's wealth grew year after year, even when he wasn't actively working. Meanwhile, his poor dad's financial situation stayed the same, tied to his job. This was the difference between working for money and making money work for you. Rich Dad reminded Robert that real wealth is freedom, the ability to choose what to do with your time. That freedom comes only when your assets earn more than your expenses. By the end of the chapter, Robert fully understood Rich Dad's message. Take care of your own business first. Build a strong foundation of assets, property, investments, or ventures that generate cash flow. Don't depend solely on an employer for your financial future. The road to financial independence begins when you stop saying, "I work for my money," and start saying, "My money works for me." Chapter 4. In this, Robert Kiyosaki explores the history of taxes and explains how corporations can be powerful tools for wealth building. He begins by noting that the concept of income tax is relatively recent in human history. For centuries, people paid taxes on property, trade, or land, but income taxes as we know them today only became widespread in the 20th century. The introduction of income taxes created a new set of challenges, especially for individuals who rely solely on wages. Rich Dad explained that taxes were not inherently bad, but they could be managed intelligently. He taught Robert that corporations allow the wealthy to reduce taxes and protect their money. Corporations are not just businesses, they are financial structures that provide advantages unavailable to most employees. For example, corporations earn income, pay business expenses before taxes, and allow profits to be reinvested, which lowers taxable income. Robert learned that the rich often use corporations to separate personal income from business income. This separation provides legal protection, minimizes taxes, and creates opportunities to reinvest profits. While employees are taxed immediately on their earnings, corporations allow money to grow and compound before taxes are paid. This simple strategy makes a huge difference in long-term wealth accumulation.
Rich Dad also emphasized that understanding taxes and corporations is part of financial education. Most people avoid learning about taxes or think it's too complicated, but ignorance is costly. The poor and middle class pay more in taxes simply because they work for wages and fail to use legal structures to protect their income. The rich, on the other hand, study tax laws and invest strategically, keeping more of their money and allowing it to grow. Robert observed that corporations are essentially tools. They're not morally good or bad. They're a way to organize money, manage risk, and legally reduce tax liability. Learning how to use corporations responsibly is a crucial step toward financial independence. Rich Dad stressed that
the key is financial intelligence, which allows you to see opportunities and use rules to your advantage. By the end of the chapter, Robert understood that taxes and corporations are part of a larger system. The wealthy use these tools to protect their money, reduce expenses, and invest in assets that generate more income. Ordinary workers, by contrast, remain dependent on salaries, losing a large portion of their earnings to taxes. Rich Dad's lesson was clear. Mastering financial education includes learning how taxes work, how corporations work, and how to use both to make money work for you. This chapter reinforced a critical theme in Robert's journey. Knowledge is power. By understanding and applying financial rules, you can take control of your money, reduce unnecessary burdens, and create opportunities for long-term wealth. Corporations, taxes, and smart financial planning are not obstacles. They are tools for those who know how to use them. Ultimately, learning these lessons early allows you to stay ahead and build financial freedom rather than being trapped by a paycheck and high taxes. Chapter 5. In this chapter, Robert Kiyosaki explains one of the most important lessons he learned from his rich dad. The rich invent money. Unlike most people who believe money is scarce or must be earned by working long hours, the wealthy understand that opportunities exist everywhere. They see possibilities that others overlook and use creativity, knowledge, and courage to turn ideas into profitable ventures. Rich Dad taught Robert that becoming rich is not just about having capital or luck, it's about financial intelligence. People with financial knowledge can create solutions where others see problems. For example, they might recognize an undervalued business, a new investment trend, or a market inefficiency. While most people wait for a safe opportunity or a guaranteed paycheck, the rich take calculated risks to generate wealth. Robert learned that money is a tool, not an end in itself. The wealthy used money as leverage to create more money. They combined financial education with creativity, courage, and persistence. Rich Dad emphasized that many opportunities appear small or risky at first, but those who act decisively and wisely can turn them into substantial gains. This chapter also addresses fear and greed, two powerful forces that prevent ordinary people from seeing opportunities. Fear makes people hesitate, and greed makes them overreach. The rich, however, learn to manage these emotions, using fear as motivation to study and greed as a signal for potential opportunity. They understand that risk is not something to avoid, but something to manage intelligently. Robert recalls learning that many successful investments or businesses were born from what seemed like impossible situations. The rich invent money by combining knowledge, creativity, and courage to turn challenges into profitable solutions. They see opportunity where others see obstacles, and they act while others hesitate.
Rich Dad stressed that financial success is not about having more money, it's about seeing and acting on opportunities. Ordinary people follow rules and avoid risks, believing that money is limited. The wealthy break rules wisely, innovate, and create wealth where it didn't exist before. The lesson is clear. Wealth is not simply earned, it is invented through vision, knowledge, and courage. By the end of the chapter, Robert understood that being rich is not about luck or inheritance. It's about mindset, creativity, and the willingness to act on opportunities. The rich invent money because they think differently, manage risks intelligently, and take decisive action. This lesson reinforced a key principle of Rich Dad's philosophy: don't wait for money, create it. Chapter 6. In this, Robert Kiyosaki shares one of the most practical lessons from his rich dad: the importance of working to learn, not just to earn a paycheck. Many people focus solely on increasing their income through jobs, promotions, or overtime. They think that a higher salary will make them rich, but Rich Dad explained that money alone does not create wealth. What matters is the skills, knowledge, and experience you gain along the way. Rich Dad taught that when choosing a job, you should focus on the opportunities it provides for learning valuable skills. Skills such as sales, marketing, communication, leadership, and financial management are far more important than simply earning a paycheck. He encouraged Robert to take jobs that would teach him lessons, even if the pay was low. In contrast, high-paying jobs that don't build knowledge or experience are less valuable in the long term. Robert recalls taking various jobs, from working in a store to assisting in small businesses, not for money, but to learn how business works. Rich Dad explained that these experiences taught him lessons in problem-solving, observing human behavior, and understanding how money flows. Each job became a classroom, and every challenge became a teacher. One key point Rich Dad emphasized is that the wealthy focus on developing their personal value, not just their paycheck. Money is temporary, but knowledge and skills compound over time. When you work to learn, you create opportunities to earn more in the future and build assets that generate passive income. Rich Dad also explained the importance of versatility. People who specialize in only one skill may be valuable in a specific role, but they are vulnerable if circumstances change. By contrast, developing a variety of skills allows you to adapt, create opportunities, and manage risk. The lesson is simple but powerful. Don't work for money, work to learn skills that make money work for you. Robert learned that his poor dad often encouraged him to focus on security and stability, but Rich Dad pushed him to embrace education through experience. Financial freedom, he realized, comes from knowledge, courage, and the ability to act on what you've learned. By working to learn, not just to earn, you prepare yourself for opportunities the average person cannot see. By the end of the chapter, Robert understood that wealth is not built overnight. It is built through continuous learning, skill development, and practical experience. Every job, project, or challenge is a chance to gain knowledge that can later be converted into assets. The central message of this chapter is clear: invest in yourself, learn relentlessly, and let your knowledge create wealth. Chapter 8. In this, Robert Kiyosaki explains that the biggest obstacles to financial success are often not external, but internal. Fear, cynicism, laziness, bad habits, and arrogance prevent people from taking action and building wealth. While knowledge and skills are important, overcoming these psychological barriers is what separates those who achieve financial freedom from those who remain stuck in the rat race. Fear is the most common obstacle. Many people are afraid of losing money, making mistakes, or being judged for taking risks. This fear keeps them from investing, starting businesses, or pursuing opportunities. Rich Dad taught that fear is natural, but it must be managed. The wealthy learn to act despite fear, using it as a motivator to study, plan, and take calculated risks. Cynicism is another barrier. People often say, "It's too risky," or "that won't work." Cynicism prevents action and fosters excuses. Rich Dad encouraged Robert to question conventional wisdom, look for opportunities, and develop confidence through learning and experience. Laziness, meanwhile, is more subtle. Many people avoid taking responsibility for their financial future, waiting for luck or someone else to solve their problems. Wealthy individuals understand that effort and persistence are essential. Bad habits, such as overspending, procrastination, and lack of planning, also hinder financial growth. Even those with high income can fail to build wealth if their habits drain their resources. Rich Dad emphasized the importance of discipline, careful decision-making, and prioritizing asset building over consumption. Arrogance is another hidden obstacle. Some people believe they know enough or that they are smarter than others, preventing them from learning or seeking advice. The wealthy remain humble, then continuously expand their knowledge. Robert learned that overcoming obstacles is about awareness and action. Recognizing these barriers is the first step. The next is taking concrete steps to counter them. He discovered that even successful people face fear, cynicism, and challenges, but their mindset allows them to persist. Rich Dad's advice was simple. The road to wealth is not smooth, but those who face and manage these obstacles are the ones who succeed. By the end of the chapter, Robert realized that financial education alone is not enough. Success requires confronting and managing emotions, habits, and attitudes. Fear and doubt will always exist, but the ability to act despite them is what creates opportunities. Rich Dad's lesson was clear. The greatest obstacles to wealth are internal, and overcoming them is the key to achieving financial freedom. Chapter 8. In this, Robert Kiyosaki focuses on how to begin your journey toward financial freedom. Rich Dad emphasized that knowledge alone is not enough. Action is required. Many people understand the principles of wealth, but never take the first step. The key, he said, is to start now, no matter how small the step may seem, and build momentum over time.
Rich Dad provided Robert with practical advice on how to get started. The first step is to decide to be financially intelligent. You must commit to learning about money, understanding assets and liabilities, and observing opportunities in everyday life. He stressed that a clear decision, backed by consistent action, separates those who succeed from those who merely dream. Robert learned that taking risks wisely is part of the process. It's not about gambling or making reckless choices, but about making informed decisions and learning from experience. Even small investments or side ventures can teach important lessons in money management, entrepreneurship, and investing. Another key idea is to develop multiple streams of income. Relying solely on a salary limits your financial growth. By starting side businesses, investments, or income-generating assets, you create a foundation that can grow and provide freedom over time. Rich Dad encouraged Robert to think creatively, ask questions, and look for opportunities where others see problems. Rich Dad also emphasized the importance of surrounding yourself with the right people. Mentors, advisors, and like-minded peers can provide guidance, insight, and support. Learning from the experience of others accelerates your growth and helps you avoid common mistakes. Robert realized that starting is often the hardest part. Fear, procrastination, and uncertainty can hold people back. But Rich Dad reminded him that the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. Even small actions compound over time, leading to greater knowledge, confidence, and financial results. By the end of the chapter, Robert understood that getting started is about mindset, commitment, and courage. Education, planning, and observation create opportunities, but without action, they remain theoretical. Rich Dad's advice was clear: make a decision, take your first step, and continue learning. The path to financial freedom begins with starting, and consistent effort over time turns small beginnings into lasting wealth. Chapter 9. In this, Robert Kiyosaki provides practical steps for anyone who wants to take control of their financial future. While previous chapters focused on mindset, principles, and lessons, this chapter is about actionable steps that can turn knowledge into real results. Rich Dad emphasized that financial education is only valuable when applied consistently. The first step is to find a reason greater than reality. Robert explains that motivation matters. A strong why drives people to overcome fear, obstacles, and doubt. Whether it's the desire for freedom, security, or the ability to help others, having a clear purpose fuels persistence. Without a compelling reason, most people give up at the first sign of difficulty.
Next, Rich Dad recommends choosing daily actions that contribute to financial growth. Small, consistent steps, reading financial books, learning about investments, observing cash flow, or starting a side project build knowledge and confidence over time. Consistency, rather than speed, is the key to compounding financial skills. Robert also stresses the importance of teaching what you learn. Sharing knowledge with others reinforces understanding and creates opportunities for collaboration. Rich Dad explained that those who teach often find creative ways to solve problems and spot opportunities that others miss. Another critical point is to pay yourself first. Instead of spending all income on expenses and luxuries, set aside money to invest in assets that generate income. This habit builds wealth over time and shifts focus from consumption to growth. Robert emphasizes that developing the discipline to prioritize assets over liabilities is a lifelong skill. Rich Dad also encourages taking calculated risks. Learning to manage risk intelligently is more valuable than avoiding it. By starting small, observing outcomes, and learning from mistakes, you gradually gain the confidence and skill to make larger, smarter investments. Fear should be used as a guide, not a barrier. Networking and learning from mentors are also emphasized. Surrounding yourself with financially educated and like-minded people accelerates growth and exposes you to opportunities that would otherwise remain invisible. Robert points out that money alone cannot teach. The people you associate with and the knowledge you acquire are equally important. Finally, Rich Dad reminds readers to keep moving forward. Progress may be slow and obstacles will appear, but persistent action compounds into results. Each small decision, saving, learning, investing, or taking calculated risks, adds to your financial intelligence and asset base. By consistently applying these lessons, ordinary people can create extraordinary financial outcomes. By the end of the chapter, the reader understands that financial freedom is not achieved overnight. It requires purpose, education, discipline, action, and persistence. The chapter provides a clear roadmap. Find your reason, take daily steps, pay yourself first, embrace learning, and use mentors and experience to grow. Rich Dad's message is simple. Knowledge becomes power only when applied with courage and consistency, and the journey to wealth begins with intentional, purposeful action. Chapter 10. In this, Robert Kiyosaki explains a concept that many people misunderstand. Wealth is not measured by what you see, but by what you don't see. Most people equate wealth with visible possessions, big houses, fancy cars, designer clothes, and luxury vacations. They assume that a wealthy person must live extravagantly. In reality, true wealth is measured by assets that generate income, savings, and financial freedom, not by outward appearances. Rich Dad emphasized that the desire to look rich often leads to financial trouble. People spend money they don't have to impress others, buying liabilities they mistakenly think are assets. Mortgages, car loans, and consumer debt create the illusion of wealth while draining resources. By contrast, the rich focus on building income-producing assets that grow quietly in the background. Their wealth is often invisible, but it works relentlessly.
Robert learned that financial intelligence is about understanding the difference between assets and liabilities. An asset puts money in your pocket, a liability takes money out. A Ferrari may look impressive, but it costs money every month and is a liability. A rental property, dividend-paying stock, or business may be unseen by others, but it adds real wealth. Rich Dad taught that the richest people often appear ordinary because they don't feel the need to display their wealth. Their focus is on acquiring and growing assets, not on status symbols. Wealth is about freedom, security, and control, the ability to live life on your own terms rather than maintaining appearances for others. Robert realized that society often misleads people into believing that visible success equals financial success. Schools, media, and peer pressure encourage spending to impress rather than saving and investing to create real wealth. Rich Dad's lesson was clear. Stop comparing yourself to others and focus on building assets that work silently for your future. Another important idea is patience. True wealth accumulates slowly through smart investments and consistent asset building. It is not flashy or immediate. It is often invisible, quietly growing while others focus on consumption. Those who understand this principle gain a long-term advantage over those who chase instant gratification. By the end of the chapter, Robert understood that wealth is subtle and invisible. It is not about showing off or impressing others, but about creating freedom through assets, financial intelligence, and smart decision-making. The lesson is simple but profound. Focus on building wealth that you can't see, and over time, it will provide real power, freedom, and security. Chapter 11. In this, Robert Kiyosaki explains the importance of saving money as the foundation for financial independence. Many people believe that saving is impossible on a tight budget, but Rich Dad taught that saving is not about the amount, but about creating the habit and mindset. Even small amounts, when managed wisely, can become the seed for building assets and wealth over time. Rich Dad emphasized that saving money allows you to invest rather than just spend. Most people earn money and immediately spend it on expenses, luxuries, or liabilities, leaving nothing to grow. By contrast, those who save first can put money into assets, which then generate income and compound over time. Saving is the key to breaking free from the cycle of working for money. Robert learned that discipline is essential. Saving requires controlling impulses and prioritizing the long term over instant gratification. It's not just about denying yourself, but about allocating funds to opportunities that create financial freedom. Even small, consistent contributions to assets can have a massive impact in the long run. Rich Dad also taught that saving is about mindset. People who save are thinking like investors, not consumers. They understand that money left idle can become a powerful tool when directed into income-producing opportunities. This mindset separates the wealthy from the middle class, who often spend to look successful instead of investing to become successful.
Another critical lesson is that saving without investing is not enough. Money sitting in a bank account loses value due to inflation. The goal is to save strategically and then channel those savings into assets such as businesses, real estate, or stocks that grow in value and generate cash flow. Robert realized that the act of saving is also an emotional skill. It requires patience, foresight, and the ability to resist societal pressures to spend. By creating a habit of saving and investing, individuals gradually gain control over their financial future. Rich Dad's advice was clear: pay yourself first, save diligently, and let your money work for you. By the end of the chapter, Robert understood that saving is not merely about frugality or cutting costs, it's about building a foundation for wealth. Every dollar saved and invested is a step toward independence, freedom, and security. Saving is the bridge between earning and creating financial freedom, and mastering it is essential for anyone who wants to become truly wealthy. In Chapter 12, Robert Kiyosaki explores the crucial role that emotions play in financial decisions. Many people believe that money is purely about logic and numbers, but Rich Dad taught that emotions, especially fear and greed, are the primary reasons most people struggle financially. Understanding and managing emotions is just as important as learning about assets, liabilities, and investments. Fear is the most powerful emotion that stops people from taking action.
Fear of losing money, fear of making mistakes, and fear of the unknown prevent many from pursuing opportunities. Rich Dad explained that while fear is natural, it should not control decisions. Instead, it should be acknowledged, studied, and used as a tool to make smarter choices. The wealthy act despite fear, learning from experiences rather than being paralyzed by it. Greed, on the other hand, can cause people to take unnecessary risks or make impulsive decisions. Chasing high returns without understanding the risks often leads to losses. Rich Dad emphasized that managing greed means thinking long-term, making calculated decisions, and avoiding emotional reactions to short-term market movements. Robert learned that most financial failures are not caused by a lack of knowledge, but emotional mistakes. People often buy high when the market is booming and panic sell when it crashes, following the herd rather than a plan. Rich Dad taught that controlling emotions allows you to make rational decisions, invest wisely, and stay focused on long-term goals. Another important lesson is patience. Emotional control enables people to hold on to assets, wait for opportunities to grow, and avoid impulsive spending. The rich understand that wealth grows gradually and that acting on short-term emotions can destroy long-term progress. Rich Dad also encouraged Robert to study human behavior, not just money. Understanding how people react under stress, excitement, or fear provides insights into opportunities others overlook. By combining financial knowledge with emotional intelligence, one can navigate markets, investments, and business decisions more effectively.
By the end of the chapter, Robert realized that mastering emotions is essential to building wealth. Knowledge alone is insufficient. Without emotional discipline, even the smartest investor can fail. The lesson is clear. Don't ignore emotions. Acknowledge them, understand them, and use them to make better financial decisions. Those who master both money and their emotional responses create true financial freedom and long-term wealth. Chapter 13. In this, Robert Kiyosaki discusses how personal relationships and social influences affect financial decisions. He emphasizes that money is not just about numbers, it's also about people. The people you spend time with, the advice you follow, and the values you adopt all shape your financial mindset and ultimately determine your success or failure. Rich Dad taught that many people allow their friends, family, or colleagues to influence their financial decisions, often to their detriment. Peer pressure, social expectations, and comparisons can lead individuals to spend unwisely, take unnecessary risks, or avoid opportunities out of fear of judgment. Robert learned that to build wealth, you must control whose advice and opinions matter. Another key lesson is that people often have conflicting financial goals and risk tolerances. Some prioritize security, while others prioritize growth. Understanding that different approaches are valid helps prevent frustration and conflict. Rich Dad encouraged Robert to focus on his own financial journey, learning from mentors and observing what works for the wealthy, rather than trying to follow the crowd. Robert also realized that wealth building often requires breaking away from societal norms. People are conditioned to work for money, spend to impress, and rely on security. Choosing to prioritize assets, financial education, and long-term freedom sometimes means making choices that others might not understand or support. Rich Dad emphasized the importance of learning from multiple perspectives. Surrounding yourself with financially intelligent people, mentors, and advisors provides guidance and insight that can accelerate growth. At the same time, it's crucial to maintain independence, thinking critically, and making decisions that align with your goals. By the end of the chapter, Robert understood that financial success is as much about who you associate with and what you learn from them
as it is about money itself. Being aware of influences, choosing mentors wisely, and focusing on your own path allows you to make smarter decisions and avoid common pitfalls. The lesson is clear. In the journey to wealth, the right guidance, perspective, and social environment are invaluable tools for achieving financial freedom. Chapter 14. In this, Robert Kiyosaki explores why pessimism can be more seductive than optimism and how this mindset affects financial decisions. He explains that most people are naturally cautious, focusing on risks, problems, and what might go wrong. While caution has its place, excessive pessimism can prevent people from seizing opportunities and building wealth.
Rich Dad taught that the media, economic forecasts, and societal narratives often amplify pessimism, highlighting crises, failures, and downturns. People are drawn to these stories because they evoke strong emotions like fear and anxiety. As a result, many avoid investing, taking risks, or pursuing opportunities, believing it is safer to wait for perfect conditions. Robert learned that pessimism often comes disguised as logic. People say things like, "The market is too risky," or "This investment will fail," without considering how the wealthy manage risk and capitalize on opportunities. Rich Dad emphasized that every opportunity carries risk, and the wealthy succeed by learning how to manage it, not by avoiding it. Optimism, in contrast, is what drives progress and innovation. The rich view challenges as chances to create, learn, and grow. They understand that setbacks are temporary and that long-term thinking yields rewards. By cultivating optimism alongside prudence, they can take calculated risks that others fear to approach. Another lesson Robert learned is that fear-based pessimism can be emotionally addictive. Negative predictions grab attention and provide a false sense of safety, making people feel smart by avoiding risks. However, this mindset often leads to missed opportunities, slow financial growth, and dependence on a paycheck. Rich Dad encouraged Robert to balance optimism with knowledge. Being informed, educated, and prepared allows one to act confidently even when others are pessimistic. The wealthy see crises as opportunities to buy, invest, or innovate, while most people retreat into caution and inactivity. By the end of the chapter, Robert realized that pessimism is seductive because it appeals to human instincts, but it can be a trap. To build wealth, one must resist the pull of fear-driven thinking, stay educated, and maintain an optimistic, proactive mindset. Rich Dad's lesson was clear. Financial freedom requires optimism backed by knowledge and courage, and the ability to act while others hesitate. Chapter 15. In this, Robert Kiyosaki explores how people are often influenced by stories, trends, and what others tell them, sometimes to their own financial detriment. Rich Dad emphasized that individuals are naturally prone to believing what seems popular, convincing, or widely accepted, even when it may not be true. This tendency can lead to poor financial decisions, as people follow advice without understanding the fundamentals of money and investing. Rich Dad explained that the wealthy succeed because they question assumptions, analyze information carefully, and think independently. Another lesson is that people often confuse confidence with knowledge. Someone may appear successful or persuasive, leading others to trust them blindly. However, outward confidence does not guarantee financial wisdom. Robert learned that believing everything you hear can be costly.
It can lead to impulsive investments, financial losses, and reliance on luck rather than strategy. Rich Dad stressed the importance of critical thinking. Instead of following the crowd or believing every story, you must evaluate the facts, consider risks, and understand how money truly works.
The rich develop their own perspective by combining education, experience, and careful observation. Robert also observed that fear and greed amplify this tendency. People are more likely to believe optimistic stories when the market is rising and pessimistic warnings when it is falling. Both extremes can distort judgment, but disciplined investors stay grounded, relying on knowledge and planning rather than emotions or hype. By the end of the chapter, Robert understood that financial freedom requires independence of thought. Believing blindly can destroy wealth, while learning to question, analyze, and act wisely creates opportunities. Rich Dad's lesson was clear. Don't believe everything you hear. Think critically, learn continuously, and make your own financial decisions. Those who master this skill separate themselves from the herd and gain long-term financial success. Chapter 16. In this, Robert Kiyosaki brings together the lessons from the previous chapters, showing how they work as a complete system for building financial independence. Rich Dad emphasized that understanding concepts like financial education, assets versus liabilities, investing, emotional control, and critical thinking is only valuable when they are applied together in a practical way. Robert explains that each lesson builds on the others. Saving money is important, but it must be combined with investing. Financial literacy is essential, but it is most powerful when paired with emotional intelligence. Working to learn is useful, but only if you take action and apply what you learn to grow your assets. Wealth is not a single decision. It is a series of interconnected actions guided by knowledge, discipline, and strategy. Rich Dad reminded Robert that success comes from creating systems, not relying on luck or short-term gains. The rich think in terms of cash flow, opportunities, and long-term results. They view failures and setbacks as learning experiences, not reasons to give up. This integrated approach allows them to navigate risks intelligently and consistently grow their wealth over time. Robert also reflects on the importance of mindset. Being proactive, optimistic, and curious, while avoiding fear, cynicism, and blind conformity, creates a strong foundation for wealth building. By combining financial knowledge with emotional discipline and practical action, anyone can move from financial dependence to financial freedom. The chapter reinforces that building wealth is not about following rules blindly, imitating others, or chasing trends. It's about understanding the principles, thinking critically, and making deliberate choices. Each financial decision should be guided by the lessons of assets, liabilities, saving, investing, and self-education.
By the end of the chapter, Robert emphasizes that true financial success comes from seeing the big picture. Each principle in the book is a piece of a puzzle. When applied together, they create a strategy that allows people to escape the rat race, build assets, and achieve freedom. Rich Dad's final message is clear. Knowledge alone is not enough. It is the integration of knowledge, action, and discipline that leads to lasting wealth and independence. Chapter 17. In this concluding chapter, Robert Kiyosaki reflects on the lessons he learned from both his Rich Dad and Poor Dad, and he shares insights that tie the book together. He emphasizes that financial education is a lifelong journey, not a one-time lesson. Wealth is built gradually through learning, disciplined action, and wise decision-making. Robert confesses that he made mistakes along the way, but each mistake was a learning opportunity. Rich Dad taught him that failures are not setbacks, they are lessons. Every financial decision, good or bad, adds to your knowledge, experience, and ability to make smarter choices in the future. He also reflects on the importance of mindset. The way we think about money, risk, and opportunity shapes our financial future. People who focus on fear, scarcity, or appearances often remain trapped in the rat race. Those who embrace curiosity, courage, and education can create freedom and control over their lives. Robert stresses that education alone is not enough. Understanding the difference between assets and liabilities, learning how to invest, and developing financial intelligence are critical, but they must be applied consistently. Action is what transforms knowledge into wealth.
He also revisits the role of mentors and influences. Choosing the right people to learn from, observing their habits, and seeking guidance accelerates success. Financial freedom is rarely achieved in isolation. It grows through collaboration, observation, and learning from those who have already walked the path. Robert concludes by reminding readers that true wealth is not about appearances, luxury, or status. It is about freedom, the ability to make choices, control your time, and create security for yourself and your family. Financial freedom requires patience, persistence, and the integration of the principles taught throughout the book. The final message is clear. Wealth is a journey, not a destination. Mistakes, learning, discipline, and thoughtful action are all part of the process. By applying the lessons from both Rich Dad and Poor Dad, anyone can escape financial dependence, build assets, and achieve long-term financial freedom.